G'day, Bomber fans. Big news at Essendon. Dave Barham has resigned from his position as president of the football club, and former player Andrew Welsh has taken the reins. Now, this was planned to change eventually. This was a succession plan that was supposed to eventuate in a couple of years, but after weeks of turmoil, headlines everywhere, the club is being talked about daily. Barham has stepped down. There is a lot going on at the moment. It's really hard to digest all this information, so I have enlisted the help from someone who I think we all turn to this guy during events like this. Scott or Scooter McNeice. He is genuinely one of the smartest and most steady-headed fans in the content creation space. So we chatted about Dave Barham, Andrew Welsh. We answered some draft questions from you guys, and even chatted a bit about our favourite movies as well. Before we get into that and that footage, I really recommend you guys check out Scott and his podcast, the Lunchtime Catchup Podcast. If you want to know more about the club, I would subscribe to that. I'll check it out on Spotify, SoundCloud, I think most audio platforms. There's also a Patreon as well. It is just exceptional stuff. When I need to get a second opinion on something, I listen to that or turn to Scott. I'm sure others in the Essendon community do the same. He really is just an awesome bloke and worth listening to. So give him some love. But yeah, let's get on to the video. All right, good day, Scott. Good day, Bomber fans. Here we are. Lots going on at the moment. I don't think I've had time to properly digest this new information. I don't know about you. So the viewers are getting it raw. We're getting it raw. It's only just been about, I don't even know, like an hour ago, an hour or two that the news came through about Dave Barham stepping down. I only found out about 20 minutes ago. So here we are. Yeah, I'm sure you're in a similar boat, Scott. This must be pretty new and fresh information for you. But yeah, we're going to get to some questions. We're going to chat about this all in a second. Before we do, most important question of the day. Scott, how are you going?
Yeah, I'm doing well, mate. Yeah, like you said, still processing. Obviously the day's events. And like you said, we're just really recording this just really after we've heard the news of Dave Barham. So yeah, it's an interesting time, but we'll get into discussion of what I think the implications are. But look, for me, I'm going pretty good. It's been a long 3 or 4 weeks. I won't
It
lie.
has.
As a Bombers fan, it's I think as a person who's a purist and loves footy, I really wanted more to enjoy the prelims and all that.
Yeah.
But there's so much focus has been on our club every day, and I think most fans are just begging that from here on we can have that stopped.
Yeah, and just a little recommendation for any fans out there, because I don't know about you, but Essendon takes up a lot of my time. Probably every hour at least I'm thinking about the club. Something I've been doing a bit lately, to just kind of tune out of all the mess going on, is just putting on a good movie. So any good movie recommendations, Bomber fans, leave them in the comments below, because that's what I've been doing lately, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. All right, Scott, let's chat about it. Yeah, what's happening at Essendon? Dave Barham has stepped down. Andrew Welsh is now taking over as president. What are your initial feelings about this move?
Oh, look, I have kind of different kind of feelings. As an overall view, I perfectly understand what's transpiring. Like, I understand probably the logic behind it.
Yep.
We all know through Tom Morris that there was clearly a challenge coming. A lot of people ask me, I have no idea where that's coming from, by the way, hand on heart.
Yeah.
But something obviously was drumming up. Obviously, Dave is an interesting, complex kind of character.
He is.
I call him the necessary sledgehammer, as far as what we probably needed short term.
Yep.
And sometimes I liken that to someone who works in sort of high-end companies. I've been in companies where you've had that sledgehammer kind of approach that's really required to shake things up. Like, there's obviously been just an historical complacency.
Yeah.
And you've needed someone to come in and say, just shake everyone up and have to get rid of dead wood and everything like that. and that's Dave. But sometimes those personalities are also hard to do long term as well. So once you've made those changes, and we'll maybe talk about it later, but obviously closing out the high performance side of things, and that felt like almost like a full loop of all the changes that's happened. Um, if you're going to have challenges, and especially around Dave, and Dave's already spoken about a transition to Andrew Welsh in the coming years,
Yeah.
then I understand them getting together. If that's what's happened, I don't know, but if that's what's happened, to say, let's just bring it forward. That
Yeah.
will knock out the challenge, that will keep the stability of the club. In some ways, I've done really what my first intention was to shake things up and re-transform a lot of positions. So I get what's happening. I think most fans would be comfortable with Andrew Welsh taking over. And yeah, so for the most part, I'm kind of reflective, but I'm still hopeful that I think it's the right move and to move forward. And hopefully that gives us a sense of consistency around our approach, around our messaging, around how we delve with players, unite the AFLW and AFL programs,
Yes.
get a few things fixed that we know have been brought up to light. So Andrew definitely has some work cut out still to go. Some big moves have been made, but there's still a cultural element that I think most of us sense needs to go to the next stage as a holistic club. So that's my kind of view, and for me, it's like it was just my nature.
Yeah. Well,
It's happened. Let's move forward and let's get it right.
And it does feel comfortable is the right word. It's usually with these bits of breaking news, there's a lot of anger and you're looking at the future with a lot of uncertainty. But I think the fact that this was a succession plan, it was going to happen in 2027. I think is that right? It sounds about right.
Yeah.
2027, 2028. It's just fast tracked it, and
Yeah.
and you're right. There's, I think Barham, even his biggest enemies and haters would agree that he's done a lot for the club. Whether it's, going to work or not will remain to be seen in the next few years. But he's done a lot for the club and he's tried to make it better. But in the process, I mean, there's been a few mistakes here and there, which it might not really have too much of an effect on the club itself, but it makes headlines. And obviously right now we're making lots of headlines and we can't have too much more of that going on. Andrew Welsh in this role, we talked about a bit about him off air, but do you think he's the right man going forward? Obviously that we don't have too much to back it off of, but
Yeah.
but is there any trepidation or uncertainty about this at all, or are you just fully comfortable with this decision going forward?
Hand on heart, I think you just have to back in the people around that's elevated him to vice president initially.
Yeah.
And now the directors who've now elevated him to president. I don't think any of us can really truly say, oh, this is exactly what we need. I don't know. I've had what I would say a lot of minor chats to Andy, but I don't know him in depth well. We know he's a very big businessman,
Yeah.
and real estate that's really shined. I mean, he owns pretty much from Essendon to Geelong, so and nearly every suburb. His business wise, his acumen is obviously very highly touted.
Yeah.
As a player, you would probably put him in the top 5 all time of people who hated to lose. So you kind of, just for me, you're mixing those two together of a very high competitive person. And that maybe what makes him a great businessman too, by the way. But extra responsibility. My only hope is that also elevates him on an Essendon front now, that because he's the man, he's the president. It gives him that extra fire in the belly to say, almost with the player attitude comes out, because he hated to lose. He really hated to lose.
Yeah.
He was kind of Archie Roberts times 5. so he was manic on the ground. So that's his nature. So I'm comfortable enough to say that there'll be no stone unturned with him
Yeah.
about winning. And I think this sounds funny, um, because a lot of people in the last week or so have commented on Matthew Lloyd and Hurd and is Hurd involved and all, yeah, there's a lot of kind of like of that premiership ilk that get talked a lot about, are they talking behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Well, obviously he's good mates with all those ones.
Yep.
So I think there's a bonus of a calming presence suddenly, because I think Hurdy would be the first to uplift him and say that's a great appointment. Matthew Lloyd as well. Um, so I think it will kind of across the landscape of the Essendon family,
Yeah.
just calm things down, because Dave was a disruptor and he took no prisoners if you didn't agree with him, or so. Andrew Welsh will have a bit more of an inclusive, just because of his natural relationships with
Yeah.
high-profile Essendon people, I'll say.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
and
yeah,
you just know though that the comments now they're going to be loving the fact that Welsh is close with Hurdy because, well, it means there's going to be a big push for Hurd from the fans at least to come back as coach, which just doesn't go away. Even Hurd can come out himself and say he doesn't want to coach, and the fans will still eat that up and say they want him to be there.
yeah. Well,
Um,
it's funny with that. Can I make a controversial comment?
yeah.
Um, I still personally think, long term, I still think some of us fans get it wrong on the Herd coach front.
Oh, I
Um, I,
I
I,
agree.
yeah, like if Craig Vozzo ever decided to go back to WA or in a couple of years or anything like that, that's the actual position I think James Hird could actually be successful at. I
Okay.
actually think
Okay.
he would. I actually think he would be make an incredible CEO. I
All
just
right.
genuinely believe that. Now, I love Vozzo, so please don't get me anything
Yeah.
wrong
Yeah.
of shaking things up. I'm very, very. I'm a really big fan of Craig Vozzo. I'm just saying, my as for my background of Hird, I actually think he's got a supreme business acumen as well. He's done every degree in you could think of. Um, he's obviously would be aligned as far as a super competitor who wants the club to
Yep.
succeed. That to me actually fits a more role that I actually think would suit him rather than a coach.
Now, is he footballing director at Port Melbourne? Is that his official title? Something along those lines?
Something along those
Yeah.
lines, yeah.
But he still does
Um,
have a say on game day as well because he has a very
yeah,
good footy mind. Like we know he's a good game day coach and everything.
yeah.
But obviously we're not. I got heaps of questions about that in the Q&A segment of it, and I unfortunately avoided a few of them just because it's a constant cycle. But now before we get on to some of the questions, Dave Barham and the legacy he will leave behind, I guess, because he's a divisive figure. There's been a lot of call for change amongst fans and the media. I personally, I would have loved to see him through to 2027 if everything went right. Obviously,
Hmm.
mitigating circumstances meant it couldn't. But I think if the club is to succeed and if we're to get better, and it would be Barham's steps at this stage in these early years of this rebuild that got us there. I think he's put us in the right place going forward. He's made some big changes, hopefully some good changes for the club. Whether
Yeah.
they are good changes remains to be seen. But we're united for the most part. We've got moving steps going forward. We've got Innes coming through to improve our strength and conditioning. We've got a good young list. I do think we're in, despite all this news going on, and this recent news especially, I think the Bombers are in a good spot going forward. It's just obviously it's tough to see that with all the headlines around. But I'm happy with the club with where the club's at, and I think Barham, whether or not he's left it in a better place than he found it. At the time being is hard to say, but I think in a few years, I think we'll be thanking him.
Look, I tend to agree. Like I said, the place needed a shake up.
Yeah.
And look, I spoke to even 2 days ago one of our younger players who's currently a little bit injured. And like he just messaged to me, hey, by the way, Matthew Ennis is a great guy. I absolutely love working with him. And just, all these just little thing like that and just go, well, that's a change that he's part of he's instrumented.
Yeah.
So they're the things. We had a commercial CEO. Now we've got a football-led CEO.
Yep.
So there's, obviously the coach is still probably 50-50 in a lot of fans' minds. I get that. But he still made the bold move and felt like they needed more experience coach that addressed their standards and which, I don't think anyone can argue that Brad Scott's at least not preached the message of preseason standards, working your butt off when you're on holiday, 7 days a week representing your club. And so there's definitely been things that he's improved. So there's going to be areas that he's improved. The tricky part is I've felt there's this tricky narrative, and I'll get your opinion as well. So the tricky narratives of people say after 3 years we're worse off, and my view is it's a little bit more nuanced than that, because probably after 18 months, this is my gut feel. After 18 months, I reckon Scott and Rosa, once Rosa knew he was taking over, went, this list isn't going to cut it.
Yeah.
And that may frustrate fans thinking like, why didn't they do it from day one? They may say they didn't have the data then, but it has delayed things.
Yeah.
So what has happened then is now you're rebuilding quite strongly, and people know we've got a lot of draft picks in this draft, which we may go into later. So yes, you're in the third year, but you had that kind of magic tweet about the age of the Collingwood, the average age of their prelim to what we may look like next year. And that's a reality where we're still going to struggle next year, and it's going to be a fourth year. But what it did happen is Scott still had the courage to go, I'm going to cop it as a coach because it's going to be my third, fourth year. But I'm still going to have to call it out and say, this list isn't good enough, and we've got to replenish it. We've got to get some high-end talent in and through the draft. And I'd rather him make the call than not, and where I felt like previous coaches tried to tinker around and get guys from other clubs to try and finish seventh. And be optically relevant. I'd rather him make that call 18 months ago and us now transition to hopefully something we can build longer term.
Yeah, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an Essendon fan out there who thinks rebuilding isn't a good idea, especially with Tasmania coming into the competition in a couple of years in the draft, which will completely eat up any chances of being able to take in good quality young talent. We're bringing in lots of young players right before that happens, so we can be well prepared for, potentially, if things go right, a push in the next 3-4 years. And obviously players might not want to stick around for that. I completely understand. But I think the fact that Brad Scott is so, driven towards that future plan, and that he had the backing from the board to do so, it shows how important Barham was. So again, a big thank you to Barham. But I guess speaking on Brad Scott, we've got we've got quite a few questions about Brad Scott, actually. The overarching theme here is whether or not Brad Scott is the right man for the job. So TC Garbage and Stephen Riscatelli ask, do you think Scott is the man, and do you think Essendon is on the right path? And if you were to agree with that, what is it about his time at the club that has suggested that he is the man for the job?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. And I have to be frank and say I still think the verdict's out. I generally don't know. And so I can't take that as a compliment of Scott, in all sincerity, because my concern probably this year was I felt like the preseason wasn't that great, as far as the skills and attention to detail on skills.
And you're someone that's at a lot of training sessions as well, right?
Yeah. Preseason, I'm much more active, and it did concern me. And I highlighted, yes, individual players going well, but as a team, I was like, oh, this is a little bit concerning. And I felt like it transitioned to the first 8-10 rounds, where yes, we won 6 of the first 10, but probably only the Melbourne game was the one I felt like we played an okay system.
Yeah.
And that concerned me. And so he has a real challenge with his team for me to teach and educate that system that is actually getting adopted by the players.
Mm.
And I think the verdict is out for me on that front that can his message, I think his message has come across as far as fitness. I mean, they work their butt off. I can promise you that. And I've never felt like we get overrun in last quarters. I've never felt we're one of those teams this year. We're actually quite strong in fourth quarters. But it's just, can the education and teaching cross over, him and Gio especially probably, with Rath as the innovation and strategy, can that cross over to real visible performances that we can identify amongst the group? Now, it's tough even more so now because he's only going to get even more youth in and less experience and Sheely, Laverty, Goldie. So the exits are going to keep coming of experience.
Yeah.
So I will say this to cut him some slack. Right now, it's very hard to do because how systems work for me and why Geelong and those guys are great is you play many years together. And, a system breaks down if two players don't obey it.
Yeah.
It completely breaks down across the field. So you need everyone in the same mind. And that's their trickiness, that we're 15 debutants and 4 mid-season. It's like you're teaching on the fly.
Yeah.
And you're seeing guys visibly in the wrong structure and going, oh, crap.
Yeah.
And you see him, and, they're all trying to instruct, say, hey, no, we need you over there. But that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So the fast tracking of teaching and education and this game plan is paramount to, I think, fans seeing Scott as the future coach.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I mean, I've always been iffy on Scott, but I think the last year I've realised that although he might not be the man to take us to a premiership, not saying he won't be, I just don't know. I think it's important we continue to blood these young players, which we're going to be doing, obviously, with the amount of new players we'll be bringing to the club, with a bit of stability and with a coach who's actually willing to, give them a go. And North fans have been very critical about Scott playing the older players. Essendon fans were too a couple of years ago. But I think this year to me has shown, even without the injuries, before the injuries, we were, I think, a younger team than when we finished up on average. We were one of the youngest in the comp. He's willing to make hard decisions, leave out players like Dylan Shield, Laverty, players who would probably be better for the team starting lineup to give younger guys a go. And I think that's what we've been asking for a long time, and he's willing to do that. I think, his contract ends in 2027. We're probably not going to be a good team around then. We're going to be a very young team for the next year or two. He's going to be giving the kids a go. He's going to be, giving them some valuable lessons. For the time being, I personally think he's the right coach. Whether or not I think he's going to be a premiership winning coach, I don't know. But for the position we're in our rebuild, I'm okay with Brad Scott. But a question here from Mudzip: which coach on the outer, retired or out of contract, would you target if Brad Scott was to be ousted in this board upheaval? This was a question before Dave Barham was resigned.
Oh, that is a good question.
And I guess it's a good question because it shows you just how easy it is for fans to say, Scott out, because there's not a lot on the outside, is there?
No, I mean, probably John. I mean, obviously, John Longmire's name's going to be mentioned, right? As far as previous coaches that have had, I'll say, reasonable success, not on grand final day, but reasonable success. As far as but also cultural success, like John Longmire. I think in his time, everyone envied the Sydney culture.
Yeah.
So I think there's an element there that I like about John Longmire.
I think a natural one people would go to is Ken Hinkley, despite the lack of success again. Yeah. Or a Nathan Buckley, but he's tied to Tasmania, so.
So Hinkley for me would make a great version of what Mark Williams was for the Demons the last decade.
Yeah.
The guy on the bench, the senior figure, the voices back and forth. I think he would make a great sort of a I don't know what the word is, coaching director. I don't know what the word is, but so I mean, I would love him at the club. Trust me, because I
so
think
would I.
I kind of think like Brad needs it as well. I think that he needs the extra voice.
He's got a
Of that
young team
senior.
alongside him, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be great. People may be surprised, but I still think there's something in Nathan Buckley that actually always has appealed
Yeah,
to
same.
me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be against it, even though there's the Collingwood tag. But
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I must admit, I'm not historically for that unless it's Sam Mitchell, but I don't, that's a bit different. But like, I do actually really respect him. I like his thoughts on the game.
Yeah.
It's not like his team didn't make a grand final. Of course they did. And
He was a kick away from winning one.
Yeah. I mean, he could easily would have won one.
Yeah.
We know he's a natural competitor.
Yeah.
So I think he'd be a better coach second time round. So I think I actually don't mind the idea would you believe, of Nathan Buckley coaching the club. So there are probably, I guess, some that come to mind. But for me, I like the idea of it being still someone quite senior. With the youth of what that's coming through, I don't feel like I want as yet an assistant having his first ever tryout.
Yeah, like another Ben Rudden type who, might be a great coach, but probably wasn't a good coach for the time.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're probably the names that stick out to me.
Now just a side question. You did mention Sam Mitchell. Let's say Sam Mitchell for some reason wants to come to Essendon. Would you consider it? He is a great coach, but would you consider it?
Take out the emotion.
I don't think I'd be able to.
Let's be real. Like, he's probably, as far as just a coach, like, if we can somehow, Essendon fans, remove every part of emotion out of Sam Mitchell,
Not possible.
like, to me, that list shouldn't make the prelim. Like, they make
agree.
that list made the prelim because of Sam Mitchell.
Yeah, 100%.
So he's, to me, if I gave a ranking like we do a draft, he would probably be almost 2.
Yeah, he'd be right up there.
He'd be right up there, because, and even with the Merritt thing, I'm not as anti him going to Merritt as others are.
Yeah,
because his mindset is, I don't care about any other club.
Yep.
I'm only caring about the role I have and my club getting success, and that's all he cares about. You can tell he totally dismisses every time a reporter says, brings up the Merritt. Do you feel funny about it? And of course not. All I want is Zach Merritt, because we will win a premiership probably if I do, and that's all I care about is premierships. Now, unfortunately, that's actually what I want in a coach, because that's what I think would go well at Essendon. I actually envy and applaud his ruthlessness. That's just me, because I want that in my coach. So it would take me a good 6 months of therapy for me to deal
6 years
to deal with the announcement. But the short side of it would be a better club.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're bang on there. Let's Brad Scott obviously is going to be a coach next year. That's not going to change. What is his pass mark for 2026, do you think?
Well, that's a very difficult question, because it won't be finals.
A question from Brian Brown Duck, by the way. No, it's not going to be finals. Well, I think if Merritt is to leave, even if Merritt stays, I think we're definitely bottom 6, I think.
Yeah, health will have a big factor, but he's coming into the season with no Nick Martin till round 10.
Yeah,
So
that
at
is rough.
least,
Yeah,
and you're already short on high end talent,
yeah,
and you don't have Sam Draper, who like it's a bigger loss than people I think give it credit for, because I thought
100%.
his form this year was like I felt it in games.
Yeah,
Sam Draper this
yeah,
year when he was playing, I could feel his presence. And unfortunately, Brian's not there yet.
yeah.
He's just not even that personality. But
No,
it's going to be a role player ruckman, not that kind of takeover ruckman. So his pass mark, I'm gonna be a really annoying person here. I'm going a little bit company line. It's not gonna be wins and losses in my head. I know that it's gonna be system based. It's gonna be the attitude of the players and their spirit every week. It's gonna be consistency of effort. Um, and and if he has good health, look, if good health is there at the club, they can get as high as 10th to me, and that would be a great outcome.
yeah,
But if he doesn't get health, then it's going to look not that pretty. But you get, say, for example, on the perfect scenario, Mackay, Ridley, and Reed healthy for most of a year transforms a lot of things.
yeah,
And that's just one line of the ground, because they're such I think that would be a really compelling back line. So the midfield, if Merritt stays, it remains competitive. Let's hope we get the Darcy Parish of 21.
yep,
Then, um, but yeah, so I mean, obviously, Roby on a wing and Dersmer at half forward, and so
Lindsay
uh,
halfback, Xavier Taylor.
But look, the natural progression, hopefully, of Caddy and Kako and Roberts, they're only just going to keep getting more
Yeah,
mature, bigger bodied. Vigo will be an interesting one,
yep,
just to watch how his body, because I love that. I loved that all these guys got senior games, how they really realized how battered they were.
yeah,
Because nearly every interview you've done of Clarkey and all them, how sore they are at the end of the
yeah,
year. So it's such an important information for them to have going into preseason. Going, all right, I've really got to get it stuck into this,
yeah,
into the weights, into the gym, so look, there we could play. I'm still an optimistic person by nature, and I still think if really healthy, the Langfords and all these guys, Durham, Caldwell, and all that, yeah, there is a team there that can actually play well
yep,
and be hard to beat. I have no doubt.
mm,
Um, with the extra maturity of some younger players, it's just, can Scott limit the inconsistencies?
yeah, yeah,
And can he develop a system that's starting to a little bit come through and
yeah,
not be so subject to turnover scores, and how we use the ball, and how we think through things, and how we structure up and
yeah,
transition D and all those things that have haunted us. Can
yeah.
we get can we get 20%? I'll take 20% better than can we go from 18th or 17th to 13th to 14th? Just
Yeah.
give me something.
Yeah, I agree. It's not going to be about wins and losses. I think, especially if Merritt does leave, I think we'd be a worse club, obviously.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that is the point of a rebuild. You take a step back to go two steps forward. And I think 2025 was bad for a number of different reasons. I think 2026 will be um, bad from a results point of view. And obviously the media
Yeah.
is going to have a field day with that. It's just important that the club stays stays hungry about the rebuild and doesn't go for that sugar hit like we have in the past.
Just a quick one.
Yep,
I think the perfect example of what you want out of a successful year is actually Richmond Football Club, because
100%.
we will be Richmond next year.
Yes. Yep.
So if Merritt goes, we are Richmond the next year.
Yeah.
Age will be exactly the same, maybe even younger. There'll be a whole lot of draft picks playing, and I could categorically say they finished behind us, but I thought they had a better year than us.
I agree. I thought they
Um,
had a great year.
yeah.
But
So if I'm a Richmond fan, I've only won 5 or 6 games, right? But I actually can see I can see in my head though what's happening and why I'm pleased.
Yeah.
That's how I want next year to be. I
Well,
want
if
Richmond next year.
yeah, if you told me at the start of the year that a team in the comp would only win one game, I would have guaranteed you it would have been Richmond. Everyone was tipping them last. I think we don't
Yeah.
even remember how bad we thought they were going to be because of the way they turned out. Like they were genuinely competitive in quite a few games against really good teams, and that's crazy to think about looking at the amount of talent they lost after a year where they finished dead last. So like credit to them, they really they did nail that rebuild and they got a good draft for it.
Yeah.
Luckily, but they are good early steps for Richmond. That is,
I,
you're right. That is what we should be next year. I hope.
yeah. The smart teams are planning before Tassie. And
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I'm glad we woke up and quickly went, we got to do it too.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it's better late than never.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Let's get to a question from the draft actually. And I guess this is a topical one because last year's draft was a super draft, many call it. I don't know if you
Yep.
paid too much attention to it. I know you're well and truly
Yeah.
on it in 2025, but pretty interesting question here from Darren. What number would Willem Dersma be taken if he was in last year's draft, do you think? So I've got the order from last year, and I'll just go through some names and we'll kind
Yep.
of judge where you think Dersma would sit. This is kind of
Yep.
telling us how good the top end talent in this year's draft is. So I think Sam Lawler at number one it would be number one this year.
Hmm.
Finn O'Sullivan, he'd probably be the same.
Hmm.
Great young talent. We haven't seen Jagger Smith.
Yep. But enormous talent. We all know it.
Enormous talent. He looks great, and he'd probably be rising star contender if he didn't get injured.
Yeah.
It starts getting interesting for me around Sid Draper, who's a player I really liked, and he was taken above Levi Ashcroft. But Sid Draper for me, I mean, tough team to get it all going in at Adelaide. But I look at the weapons of a Willem Dersma and what he can be in the future, not what he is now, because he's going to be very raw and he's going to take a bit more time than your usual, number one pick. But a Willem Dersma for me is almost like there's a risk to it because there's that unicorn title that you
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
give players because as soon as you give them that title they're just gonna they always flop for some reason, the unicorns. But Willem Dersma, if I'm looking at last year's draft, I personally think he goes above Sid Draper. Your views? There is a Harvey Langford and a down the line as well, but at pick four Sid Draper, that's where I think a Willem Dersma sits.
Yeah. I actually, do you know what? I totally agree. I would have had him equal with Jagger Smith, to be
Okay.
honest, in my head, because I think the upside, um, the reason why I really like Dersma to previous, say, let's look at like a Nick Cox, right, who's been known as the unicorn. There's a difference between named unicorn where you can play most areas of the ground, but if you've shown that you're in one of those ground an excellent midfielder, I think that makes you um, elevates you quite high. So to me, like the Bont is a unicorn, right? But what makes him special is that a guy that size can play midfield so capably, so
Yeah.
like so well. And so when Dersma goes into the midfield and say like with the championships final or with the one he had, sorry, against the Vic Metro,
Mhm.
um, where he got BOG and those minutes he played in the midfield, he was dominant.
Yep.
And they're some of the best midfielders going around. And that to me is the difference is how well he plays midfield.
Yeah.
So that to me tells me that he's what he can be is actually. I agree with Jasper here from ESPN that he can be top 10 in the whole country in the AFL in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
He has that capability, and that's why I've been very high on him because I understand the fear of the unicorn tag, but I think I when I see that tag, I go, well, what's his midfield craft like? Is it just someone who's like a bit scratchy there, just goes there, but is like doesn't really understand the craft or ground ball gets or anything. But no, he's fine there.
Yeah.
So he's really tall and like he has incredible gifts, and he can pick up a ball with one arm while sprinting. and in one player and kick it. So
Yeah.
he can mark over most people's heads. He would be a nightmare in the midfield when
No.
he's mature and his body. And that's it. He's playing that well in VFL with a skinny rake body.
Yeah.
If you're getting 20 disposals and having a big impact when your body's actually had 3 preseasons, I genuinely think this guy could be anything. So I'm a massive believer in him. I really am.
All right. Well, I guess on that, if we do get band one compensation for Draper or pick eight for Merritt, if we get another first round pick, even if we don't get another first round pick, would you be
Yes.
you'd be trading up for him?
Yeah. I honestly I would.
Yeah.
Um, uh, look, and it's the great debate, right? Because my always fear is like I could be really wrong here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what if we do it and everyone slams him in
Yep.
3 years?
Yep.
But as like everyone who studies the draft, it doesn't matter. All you can go is by your instinct, and you go, well, that's my instinct. Whether it's right or wrong, that's just me, what I see. Um, but my gut feel is that clubs would be offering 3 first round picks in 3 or 4 years for him.
Yeah.
So why not use two?
Yeah.
So, and we don't have high end talent. If this guy is possibly could reach anywhere near a Bont, what I fear that we don't grab him and then we see him be that, and we go crap.
Yeah.
I'm one of those ones that goes, yes, I know that has to sacrifice maybe a Roby or Taylor, and that's the difficult part in all this. It really is. Like
That is
it guts
difficult.
me. So what would happen then? But I can't help think still the pick, say 5 and 6 and 25 for West Coast, 1 and 14 or 15, whatever it is
Yeah.
it would be my move. And there's plenty of West Coast people reached out to me, by the way, when I pitched that, had said they would do it in a heartbeat.
Well, yeah, they've
So
got a Harley Reid, I guess. They've got that pick one, that high end
yeah,
talent that we don't have. So
and
we're in kind of
yeah,
opposite spots a little bit in the same rebuild.
exactly. A lot of them are fearful too of Dersma coming back because of the family link.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Um, and also a lot of them really, because of where West Coast is at, really like Dyson Sharp as a 200 game solid player that they just don't have.
Mm.
So they're kind of happy to say, well, we get picked 2 anyway. So we'll pick up. We could easily pick up Cooper Duff Tyler and Sharp at one of the 5 and 6 because the Tigers won't pick him up.
Yeah.
So they're to me saying, well, we could pick up Cooper Duff Tyler and Sharp.
Yeah.
And then and whatever's the next pick coming after that. So they could really, Taylor or whoever. So they love that. They love that option as well. So who knows if that will eventuate, but that's what I would do. But it's like I generally hope if Merritt does go, we get that pick 8 just to I'm trying to get that extra player to
Yeah.
come through as an option.
Well,
Even if it's
that's
coming, if it's not, if say Roby fell through,
mm.
even if it was Dersma, Taylor, and Cumming, that you'd still be going. This is great. Let's
Yeah.
go.
And the way I see it, you've got Dersma and then Daylight. I don't think in the open pool at least there's not even a question about anyone really being near Dersma for me. So
Mhm.
trading up for pick one, you're doing it for Dersma. Like that is obvious.
Yeah,
It's just a question of whether you want to. And this is what I'm still asking myself: whether you want to pass on Roby, Taylor, Lindsay, whatever combo you want
yeah,
to get that one player. And I think if we had multiple picks or more picks, if we had a Draper compensation merit pick 8, I'd do it in a heartbeat. You still bring in 2 or 3 top 10 players. One of them's Willem Dersma, but I guess that shows the position we've been put in by Matt Rosa. We're in a really strong
yeah,
draft position, and we can still move up the order even if we don't get those good compensation because we're not going to be using those second rounders. We're going to be getting first round compensation no matter what, even if it is end of first round. So I think there's going to be a lot of movement with our picks, and
yeah.
hopefully we do see like at least an attempt to move up the order early to get a look at Will and Dersma.
And that 22 and 25 can't be forgotten as well about
Yeah,
what options they could have with that.
yeah,
You know, how they could manipulate getting into a pick 10 or 12 kind of situation for those two picks if they wanted to trade down for someone who wants points. So they have different mechanisms to manipulate how they want to do things. But for me, for someone who's really looked at this draft closely, the more you can get into, to me, the top 20, like the genuine top 20 picks, as in like with all the NGAs included, you can get to the top 20 players available. You're doing well.
yeah,
You're getting, if you get you could sneak a Harley Barker at 20 and he could be easily a pick eight in 3 years.
yeah.
So you want to get into that top 20 players for me as far as the options you have, Philippos and all these guys.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people that could easily be high end talent over the coming years that are going to be around those teens mark.
And just on that, because there are quite a few fans, or they see the headlines about the draft being weaker. I don't think it's a weak draft. I think it's not a deep draft. I think there's going to be less players taken. I think the top 30 of this draft is genuinely really strong, and players like Sullivan, Roby, Taylor, Oscar Taylor, and Xavier Taylor, these bolters coming through, playing really good end of year footy, and shaking up the order. It shows you that there is a lot of talent there. So the Bombers having all these picks this year is not an issue. I've got quite a few comments this year about how we've stuffed up moving picks forward, but this is a good draft. There is lots of talent in it, so I'd be very happy with our haul.
And then look, I don't know about you, but I thought the standard of the Coast League finals was really high.
That was a great game. That was awesome
Yeah.
footy. How good was that?
Yeah, like it was a really like that's a proper Carlton home ground oval.
Yep.
It was good football. Like
Yeah.
it should give a lot of people confidence. You know, whether it's Rory Wrights, even in the lower end. If it's
Yeah.
there was a lot of Daltons and all these guys. There was a lot of talent that showed across that park
Yeah.
that tells you should give people confidence about this draft. But you're right. Once it hits 30, it can
Yeah.
it goes off.
But luckily,
But
we're not going to be active past there. We're doing all our business when it matters in this draft. So no worries at all from me about it. I think 2025 is a good opportunity for the Bombers to bring in some good young talent.
yeah, I mean, I think I told someone on Bomber Blitz, I said, who were asking me, about the week draft. And I said, how I see this draft is Murphy Reed getting picked 16 last year. There's a bunch of Murphy Reeds in this draft that could shine like Murphy Reed can on talent.
Yep.
But they've either been sometimes inconsistent, whether it's a Hargraves and all these kind of guys, but there's a lot of talent there
Yep.
that could, in an AFL level, just suddenly pop up and go, yeah, I'm here and I'm a very good footballer. So there's a lot to like.
Yeah, and not to harp on because I do a lot of draft yap anyway, but I love the fact that there is so much disagreement because that to me that doesn't show that it's a weak draft because a lot of the disagreement are people rating random players really highly. Like I don't know why no one's on my Harley Barker train, like right up the top there. I see something there. There's I've seen some random players. I've seen Hibbins Hargraves in the top 10. Yeah, there's a bunch. There are some random. Everyone disagrees on one player, whether it's for good reasons or
Yes.
bad. But even if we disagree, like Dyson Sharp, I don't think he's a bad draft prospect because I have him down at 15 or 16. I just think he's a different draft prospect, and that there are better contested midfielders out there. So I think it's a good draft, and I think people are slowly coming around to that way of thinking as well, which is good.
Yep.
Alrighty. Now, a question from Cal, not Cal Toomey.
Yes. I don't need to tell him about the draft.
No, thoughts on the VFL program. So there's been a lot of talk about that lately. Obviously, this year is very hard to judge because when there's injuries in the AFL, it's even harder for the VFL to cope. There were some players that really I didn't think would play in the VFL
Yeah.
some weeks. I didn't even know who they were at times. And I think there was even one week when there were 3 AFL listed players or 3 or 4 playing in
Yeah.
a VFL game, which is crazy. So what are your thoughts on the VFL? You've had a chat with the coach. How do you think it's tracking?
Yeah, look, I'm really glad this question came up because people might find this hard, but if people who know me know I'm very passionate about the VFL program. It's in the healthiest shape it's been in a long, long, long time. And I can honestly say that as far as player retention, players being happy. Um, a lot of hard work behind the scenes has happened. We actually have some really good VFL listed players.
We do.
We just we just had the unique year where just no AFL players joined them. And if they were, it was, no offense to some of the AFL listed players, but it was guys that were on the very end of the deal list, the likely deal list front,
Yeah.
and not high impact themselves, if I'm being blunt. So, but if you go through most of their games, how many games was it tied at 3/4 time? These guys were just still competing very hard against very good teams, and they had no right to. Like, they had no one in it to help them out, and yet they were playing well. So I know guys at the VFL, like, their confidence is so high, and they're already the last 2 months been recruiting around the country. So they've been very proactive. I'll just give you that tidbit. There's some good news coming with the VFL. They want to ramp it up even more. They're signing the right guys that played well this year to all come back. So it's going to go from strength to strength. And yeah, so ignore the ladder this year.
Yeah.
They were far more competitive than the AFL men's in nearly every game, and consistently.
Yeah, I agree.
They were nearly in every game, and they had no right to be, as far as the opposition having 15, 16 listed players playing on their side, and senior listed players that they had to play against. So you actually, if once that comes back, and Matthew Innes does his magic, hopefully in the next 1 or 2 years, that I think that program, you'll see us in finals pretty quickly. I genuinely believe that. Now, big part of thanks to that is obviously coaches, development team, but I want us to give a bit of a shout out because people may not know this. There's a director at the club called Tim Roberts. So Tim Roberts made it his little mission to change us around 2 years ago. I shouldn't have a favorite director, but he is. I just can't help it. But he's just a ripping guy. He's so heart and soul Essendon, but he puts everything into action. So as a board member, it's quite unique to see in some ways. But he, for when they're recruiting, guys that they want, being a businessman, he's getting them jobs, he's getting them security, he's making sure they're all happy. So it's actually attracting a lot of talent to Essendon because people are getting their economic side also situated as well to be able to play VFL. And he's there at training, he's there at the recruitment, and I think you might find in a sneaky news that he'll be announced vice president of the Essendon Football Club. So
Okay. Well, there you go. Breaking news.
So, and because I think that will align well with Andrew Welsh. So,
Right.
but for people who don't know, I just want to give that little tidbit that this guy is someone, when it comes up to re-elections and that, this guy does over and above helping the VFL program. And, I watched Eastern Rangers with him, and his eye was on all the players that that they could look at and pick up in the VFL, and that's the kind of guy he is. He's a director, but he's doing basically a recruiter's job. So shout out to them. So, but no, the program's in a really healthy state, and we are going to go up pretty quickly, I think, from here.
Awesome. Good shout out, because I think there's always people at the club that fans. Obviously, it's all about the players and coaches for fans, so it's good to give some credit where it's due. I won't keep you too long, because we could yap on all day. I've got heaps more questions. What's a good one to end on? You know what? Let's just end on a rogue one. How 2026? Give me a for the fans. Give me a cheeky most improved player. Who's someone you're looking at in 2026 that we're not talking about, who you think we're gonna be talking about a bit more?
My gut feel is Angus Clark is kind of front in mind for me.
Yep.
With another pre-season, I think if he can put on another 5 kilos, but I sneakily thought his last 3, 4 games was really promising.
He was great.
Like, yeah, there's sometimes where you see a player, he plays his first 10 or so games, and then you just sense, oh, it's clicked. It's
Yeah.
clicking a bit now. And he was running to the right spots.
Yeah.
He was more comfortable using the footy. And it just gave me Archie Roberts
Yeah.
vibes of last year, of the previous year, of just how the year ended. And so I just felt like he will go, my gut feel is that he will go up quite a big level.
I agree.
So that's the one for me as far as obviously people know I'm a big Zach Johnson
I was
fan.
going to say Zach Johnson. I was going to give him a
No,
mention. Yeah,
no, he didn't have a preseason, so he'll have
exactly.
his
Yeah.
first. He'll have his first preseason. Um, so I mean, and his ball use will be really important if he can
Yeah.
get fit.
I think there's a lot with Zach Johnson as well. I think there's a lot for him to improve on. I think the main one that I see is the defensive side of his game. I think that's what the coaches are
Mm.
probably a bit worried about too. That's a really good weakness for a young player to have. That
Yeah, yeah.
is such a common weakness for young players in the AFL system to have early. Isaac Kako had it, and that's all but fixed. So
And
Zach,
he was showing a few signs in the VFL
I
of
agree.
working on that and addressing it.
Yep.
To me, anyway.
Yep, I talked about that a lot in my VFL videos. That there were week by week I was noticing big improvements, and it's just hard to contain that
Yeah.
when you're moving up to AFL playing sub role. It was a sneaky tough year for Zach Johnson, like getting consistent
Mm.
footy going. But I think 2026 and beyond, I'm really excited about him. I said that was the last
Can I
question.
give you one quick more? One
Yep.
quick more.
Yes, please.
I'm intrigued. I don't know if he'll play seniors,
Okay.
but if he has a big preseason, if he has, I still think I'm a big believer in Carl Gerine still.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't, I know he's the forgotten man because he
He
didn't
is.
play, but talent is not his issue.
No.
If the complacency on the field sometimes with his mind can stop,
Mm.
and if he really increases that intensity every minute of the game, when he plays on a competitive instinct, he's one of the brightest tall players I've seen. It's just sometimes actually when he has space and and
Yeah.
he can actually do some odd things, but talent is not an issue for him. And I just sense with him another year of maturity and an off season. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see people start to go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
he's someone really exciting coming through.
I agree. I think fitness as well was a big
Yeah,
one to
yeah,
start the year. He
big
was he
part of it.
was he
Yeah,
was he was very unfit to start, which again is a good issue for a young player to have because
yeah,
that's something you can really work on. But even the way he moved, he looked so much more comfortable than I thought he would be behind the ball. It is just
yeah,
that those lapses and leaning back when you should be leaning forward, the lack of intent. He's
yeah.
a he's got weapons to be a great key position player. Lovely, lovely kick of the footy, Kale Ryan. So yeah, I'm
Mm.
keen to see him next year. Yeah, you're right. I'd forgotten about him a little bit just because he hadn't made his debut. You'd think everyone on the team had played, but not Jerine. But yeah, that's the last of the questions from the viewers. I did talk earlier about movies, and I know that you're a big movie guy.
Yeah,
You're a
yep.
big movie nerd. So for me tonight to kind of tune out to the SNN news that's to come, if there is to be any, what is a movie I should put on and that the viewers should put on?
Let's see. Um,
Do you have a favorite or one you've seen recently?
uh, Probably the best movie this year I've seen is Sinners.
Yeah, good
Um, that
shout.
that's that was one I watched it on IMAX,
Yeah,
and
oh
that actually floored me. Like, there's not many movies that actually floored me, and went, that's a generational
yeah,
movie. Like,
yeah,
so to me,
100%.
I'd be devastated if that didn't win Best Film, because to
Yeah,
me, I've watched most films that is the Will Dersmer of films. So
yeah, it
that
is that
is
that is number one in the draft film. Yeah,
yeah, that to me is a must watch. Yeah, so yeah,
That is
That's
a great shout because Sinners it is a genuinely a generational film. I loved every minute of that. And IMAX would have been great. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but I think that there's one scene in particular which I'm thinking
Mhm.
of in IMAX which would have just it would have popped. That would have looked
I trust me, I know
oh
the scene, and
yeah
it did.
yeah
It was like it was,
yeah. I'm jealous.
yeah,
Yeah, I've seen
yeah.
it
That
about 3 or 4 times already this year.
Yeah, I mean the whole frame went to full screen for that scene,
Yeah,
and it was just the sound was crazy, and it's just
yeah,
like
yeah,
I was just like, have you ever seen anything like this in your
yeah,
life?
yeah.
So
Oh,
no,
maybe I'll watch
that's
Sinners tonight again.
so I hear it's coming back at IMAX. So for people who missed,
Okay.
apparently it's going to do a rerun on IMAX worldwide. So for people who didn't see it and they see it at IMAX, honestly, it is one of the most breathtaking things you've ever
Yeah,
seen in your life on IMAX. It's just
I
like it will
stand by
floor
that.
you.
Yeah, that it's the last 10 out of 10 I can remember in a long time. I can't remember a film that
Yeah.
really just yeah, like wowed me that much and had me smiling walking out of the cinema. So you are spot on. Good footy takes, good movie takes. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for our chat.
My pleasure.
I think I'll mention it in the intro, but you are the first guest on Everything Essendon, so I believe. So thank you for
Oh,
joining me.
there.
Thank you.
Wow, what a
Yeah,
privilege.
yeah. Thank you for joining the channel. We'll chat again, I'm sure. Thank you, Bomber fans, for listening. And you can find Scott on the Lunchtime Catchup Podcast. Incredible podcast. But yeah, thank you, Bomber fans. Make sure you like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.
The bombers.